been a lot of talk lately in social media about Confederate monuments, Confederate flags, and the Confederate history in the Civil War. I decided to make this video to address some of those issues. First off, the South was right. Deal with that. Okay, once upon a time, there were these slaveholding secessionists who were being overtly taxed by these guys who called themselves the Union, and they seceded from that Union, and the Union came down and started freeing all the slaves and killing all the secessionists. Sounds like the Civil War, right? Well, that's not exactly. It was that describes the American Revolution pretty well. And you see, the fact is that a lot of people will say that the North was anti-racism and anti-slavery and all that crap. They weren't the black man's friend, or the black woman's for that matter. When the slaves were freed, they put them into contraband camps. And quite frequently, people would die there of malnutrition, disease, it's yada yada yada. And about 25, the contraband camps had about a 25% mortality rate. Oh yeah, that's not all. Abraham Lincoln wanted to deport all the freed slaves back to Africa. Not only that, he killed more Indians than any other president. That includes Andrew Jackson. Just look up the Homestead Act and the Dakota 38. And in fact, all of the guys who went after the Sioux, the Nez Perce, and the Navajo, and the Apache, they were all Union officers in the Civil War. William T. Sherman, Phil Sheridan, Ulysses S. Grant, George Armstrong Custer. The list just goes on and on and on. I challenge you to find me one officer who was not in the Union Army. Find me one guy in the Indian Wars from 1862, which was when the Dakota 38 were hanged, to Wounded Knee in the 1890s, who was not over that period of like 30 or more years, who was not in the Union Army in the Civil War. Anyway, black soldiers in the Confederate Army, they received equal pay and fought in desegregated units with their white counterparts. And in the North, in the Union Army, they received half pay and fought in segregated units. And this whole thing of the South being so racist and the North being so progressive and liberal and open-minded and free-thinking, it's really complete bullshit. In fact, the reason slavery was outlawed in a lot of northern states was not to create a society free for blacks. It was to create a society free from them. What they did is, instead of having slaves, they imported, immigrants to do the dirty work for them. And these factories, they were just as bad, if not worse, than cotton plantations. And you work at starvation wages and all that stuff. And I'm not saying slavery was good. I wouldn't have wanted to have been a black person in that era. And I'm glad I'm not, okay? But I'm simply making this video to add some perspective. If you want to take down the Confederate flag because it symbolizes racism and blah, 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 you can say pretty much the same thing about any other flag, including Old Glory. Because slaves were owned under the United States flag. People were killed and slaughtered in mass numbers under the United States flag. And I know there's a lot of people out there burning the United States flag saying, the Founding Fathers gave us the right to freedom of speech, blah, 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 blah. Well, I got some news for you. Back then, they might have shot you as a traitor for that. What people don't understand is that the Founding Fathers were a bunch of racist white supremacists, and that's just a fact. You got to accept the good with the bad, and you can't just cut at something and cut away the parts that displease you. That's not the way history works. Oh yeah, And Nathan Bedford Forrest, aside from being a military genius, he also worked hard in post-war years to fight for the black man's civil rights. I mean, he was not the founder of the Ku Klux Klan. He was its first leader. And the Ku Klux Klan back then was a lot different than it is today. And today, or even in the 1920s, it was basically a veterans organization. And granted, they did get pretty militant later on, but that was to protect the South from carpetbaggers and people coming from up north who wanted to exploit the South's defeat. And so yeah. Anyway, Nathan, after the Civil War, Nathan Bedford Forrest served as the Klan's first leader, and then some things happened, and he ordered it disbanded, which it was. And anyway, what happened is that he spent the last few years of his life devoting himself to black literacy, and a few racists killed some blacks, and he said that he wanted, those people hunted down. He wanted to protect the freed slaves. In fact, when he had slaves before the war, and he recruited them into his unit. This man was fucking rich for anyone now, but especially back then. And he said, "I'll free you all at the end of the war, regardless of how it turns out." And of these black Confederates, he said, "Finer Confederates never fought." Now, this video was unscripted. It was done without a piece of paper in my hand or a teleprompter or anything like that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and if you like my video, and feel free to leave a donation. It's for a really good cause. See y'all next time.